Coming up on this episode of One-on-One Sports,
we break down the NHL trade deadline,
discuss the drama surrounding Bryce Harper,
and talk NFL teams in need of a rebuild.
All that and so much more.
And it all starts
right now. Hello and welcome to this episode of One-on-One Sports. I'm Matt Holzapfel.
And I'm Andrew Vendelis. A lot happened this past weekend in the world of sports, but before we get started, let's step up to the plate for the quick hitters. The legend of Zion Williamson continues to grow. Duke's freshman star was hurt in the first minute of UNC versus Duke round 1 last week after his foot blew through the sole of his shoe, causing him to leave the game with a mild knee sprain. The incident caused many NBA players and analysts to suggest that Williamson should sit out the rest of the year and instead prepare for the NBA draft. Matt, would this be a good idea for Zion? I know you got a lot to say. Take it away.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely not a good idea, and I understand what they're all saying. You don't want to risk injury, yada, yada, yada. When you sign a letter of intent to play for a college basketball team, you are committing to them for at least 1 year.
And you play.
Exactly. Now, yes, the one-and-done rule is stupid, and it should absolutely be abolished and replaced. We'll get to that in a second. Zion Williamson is not going to sit because Zion Williamson loves basketball. He doesn't care where he gets drafted because he has an insurance policy that will pay him if he loses the money, which, by the way, is still good money no matter if he goes 1 or 15. So, yes, he should play.
Definitely, I agree. He's still day-to-day, but he should play when he's healthy. Nothing's guaranteed in the draft, as we've known.
Absolutely.
Even if you've turned heads like Zion has since high school, Coach K said himself, there's no timetable. We don't want to put pressure on him. But at the same time, his health should be the priority, but not whether he sits out.
The reason this is such a big problem is because we're starting to treat these one-and-done players like NBA players the moment they step into college. So people are already considering him the next Knicks star or whoever's the #1 pick. They're completely ignoring the fact that he has a full season to spend at Duke, and therefore they're just, forgoing his college career, which shouldn't happen.
And another question as with that as well is, Zion, if he's hurt, does that not hurt your chances of winning the national championship?
Absolutely.
Which is what Coach K wants to do as well.
Yeah, there's a reason you go to Duke. And I know there's two big ones. First of all, it's because Coach K develops players like no other, and that is an absolute fact, indisputable. Yeah. And two, it's because they know how to win at Duke. And you pick Duke for both those reasons, not one, not the other, for both. Very quickly, the one-and-done rule has to go. Either you go for 2 years or you don't go at all, you go straight to the NBA.
And he wants to win a championship. Zion's a player to help him get there.
Yeah. UFC legend George St. Pierre officially called it quits on Thursday, ending an illustrious career with a record of 26-2. Andrew, what kind of legacy will St. Pierre leave behind, and where does he rank among the all-time greatest fighters?
Only 2 losses in your career, not too shabby. He's one of the greatest of all time. If not, I know I have a soft spot in my heart for Anderson Silva, but either way, GSP is the best double champion in history. Sorry, Conor McGregor. He is a welterweight, middleweight champion, 3-time welterweight champion. He retired with the belt in 2013, came back in 2017, switched divisions, beat Michael Bisping for the middleweight championship, and his welterweight championship has the second longest combined reign in UFC history with over 2,200 days. 9 consecutive title defenses.
They don't understand how impressive it is to retire and then come back 4 years later and instantly get, continue that reign. This isn't Michael Jordan going to baseball and coming back to basketball. No. This is a whole different animal. George St. Pierre had a unique blend of physical and mental ability that led to him, like you said, only losing 2 matches. Those 2 people that beat him, both named Matt, by the way, he knocked them out the
so
next time.
So you're saying he could beat GSP?
No. He knocked both them out in the rematches and got a vengeance. He's the greatest of all time.
Definitely. And on top of that, he's the GOAT, 4 times champion across 2 divisions. What's there not to say?
Absolutely. He also was the only welterweight in history to land more than 1,000 strikes, over 1,200.
You think about how tough it is to switch divisions. Not just in the UFC.
My God, yeah.
And welterweight to middleweight, that's a good 15-pound difference there, I think. But it's impossible almost, the training you have to go to. And to go in and on your first fight or second fight, beat one of the best in your division, Michael Bisping, who is a threat to be reckoned with, and now he's retired as well. And to go out on top like that, the first time around when he retired in 2013 with the welterweight championship, and then come back 4 years later and do it again in a different division, go.
He is absolutely the best 170-pounder in UFC history, probably the best in all of UFC.
Definitely, undisputed. Boston Celtics star point guard Kyrie Irving unleashed his frustration towards media members last week after being asked for his opinion of the reports that him and Kevin Durant wanted to team up to join the New York Knicks at the conclusion of this season. Matt, is Kyrie's frustration justified?
I'm going to be a hypocrite a bit because a few weeks ago on this show, I blamed KD for lashing out at the media, but I understand what Kyrie's going through. You just want to play basketball, and the rumors what I have a problem with. Yes, you can do your job as the media. You can report on whatever is possibly happening.
Facts.
But the rumors are an issue. It's getting to the point where you can't even look at another player without being criticized or accused of wanting to play with them and maybe tampering in the whole tampering thing too.
Only Kyrie, maybe his agent, maybe his family know what they want to do. The media has a duty, as you said, to report any findings of him potentially leaving. But I say this all the time, off air, sports is the only outlet of journalism that has the least amount of fact checking, the least amount of, credible sources, and it allows for fake news to spread. I'm not saying this is fake news, but reporters have agendas in the sports world. We're all fans, but the sports media is centered around opinions. It's centered around speculation. Very rarely is it ever able to be truly objective, and that's why I understand why Kyrie's getting upset.
If it's not Woj, I don't want to hear it. Le'Veon Bell is free at last. The Pittsburgh Steelers running back has finally been granted his wish as the team announced that they will not place a franchise tag on Bell this offseason. Andrew, when Bell finally puts the pads on again, what team will he play for?
This was a hard one. I know the Steelers probably want. Yeah, well, it's different with Antonio Brown because you can choose where he wants to go.
Different situations.
Yeah, trade him to an NFC team, but I don't see Le'Veon Bell going to an NFC team on his own free will. I think the Jets are a good destination for Le'Veon to elevate the offense, take the pressure off of Sam Darnold, and help the offense develop. It's really a shot in the dark, though. You don't know. You saw him tweet, "Where should I go?" That emoji. Anyway, the wind blows. It doesn't matter to Le'Veon
I'd like to
as
see
long
where
as
he
gets
wants
paid.
to go. I want to know. I want to be inside his brain. Obviously, that's impossible, but I like the Jets a lot. It's a great pick. I also like the Raiders. This is the team that lost Marshawn Lynch to a season-ending groin injury halfway through the season. He's not signed for this year. Their only running back left is Doug Martin, who, while he ran hard, was also on a one-year deal. They're going to have to re-sign him, too, if they want to keep him. They clearly have an aptitude for bringing in veterans who are proven. Marshawn Lynch, Doug Martin. Yes, Doug Martin is proven. He had some great seasons. He was, sorry. And now with Amari Cooper gone, they're missing a cornerstone on offense. They have a lot of draft picks. I think still a good quarterback in Derek Carr, which means they have promise, and they're looking for a star, and Le'Veon Bell is a star.
And Le'Veon is also in the prime of his career.
Absolutely. I like the Jets. I think Ravens, Buccaneers, too. Raiders fit in there as well.
I would love Le'Veon. We don't need him. Well, that's all the time we have for the quick hitters.
When we come back, we'll discuss the NHL trade deadline.
Aside from the playoffs, the time that most sports fans always look forward to is the trade deadline. With no shortage of blockbuster deals and last-minute surprises, I'm here with Luis Mueller to decide what is going on with the NHL trade deadline. So, Luis, tell me, what are the biggest trades from deadline week?
So I'm going to have to go 3 days before the deadline even started. It's going to be Matt Duchene to the Columbus Blue Jackets. It consisted of Matt Duchene and defenseman Julius Bergman going to the Jackets for prospect Vitaly Abramev, Jonathan Davidson, and lottery-protected 2019 first-round pick and another pick in 2020. Matt Duchene is a center. He's a stud center. He was from Ottawa. And Ryan Johansson, who left Columbus in 2015-16, has never been replaced, and they've been looking for this stud centerman, and they finally got him in Matt Duchene. He has 50 games played and 58 points. That's more than a point per game.
Now, as a little follow-up, do you think this helps project Columbus to make it to a cup round final?
Without a doubt.
Conference final.
In the past couple years, they've lost in the first or second round to Pittsburgh, and this puts their offense production way above what it was in previous years. They have Cam Atkinson on the first line with Matt Duchene, and Matt Duchene is a beast. 27 goals, 31
So what other trades stood out to you?
I'd have to say Gustav Nyquist going to San Jose. San Jose is second in the division, and this also helps him go forward to win the division. He has 49 points. He averages each year with 45 to 55 points, despite how many games he played. And he's also a pure goal scorer. The third one I'm going to have to go to is Mark Stone to the Vegas Golden Knights. A new team. They made it to the Stanley Cup Finals last year. I don't know how I feel about that. At first, I didn't like this trade, but he had an 8-year extension after that. So this helps them have a milestone or a cornerstone to build around.
Could help them get right back where they started last year. So finally, who won the trade deadline out of all the teams?
Well, I didn't mention any of the trades from Nashville, but I'm going to have to say the Nashville Predators won it.
Why's that?
Because their trades with Wayne Simmons and Mikael Granlund, it helps them go to the Stanley Cup Finals and maybe give them that edge to win it finally. Despite Mark Stone being the big fish in the pond during the deadline, the Preds got the pieces that they need to win the Stanley Cup, and that's why I think they're going to
Came so close just a couple of years ago, as we mentioned a couple weeks back on NHL. But who knows? Could shake up a lot of things come playoff time. Yep. We hit our deadline at the rink today, but up next, we'll go to the fairway with Matt to find out who won the World Golf Championship in Mexico.
Despite a late surge by Rory McIlroy, Dustin Johnson kept off a dominant 4 days of golf with a 66 on Sunday to win his 6th World Golf Championship in Mexico. Johnson added to his already decorated resume by capturing his 20th career PGA Tour victory. And I'm here with Will Burns and David Flint to break it all down. So guys, how meaningful of a win was this for Dustin Johnson? Well, let's start with you.
It was a very meaningful win for Dustin. Like you said, this is the 20th career PGA Tour victory for Dustin, which puts him in a class of his own in terms of his age. He's only 34. And that wasn't even the most impressive thing about this tournament. The most impressive thing was the fact that he basically lapped the field. The next guy down from him was Rory McIlroy, who was 5 strokes behind him. The next person down from Rory was 5 strokes behind him. So if Rory didn't play, he would have won by 10 strokes. So that just shows how dominant he was and how locked in he was in Mexico.
Going off that, I find it interesting you mentioned the late surge by Rory. I'm not sure a 5-stroke deficit qualifies as a late surge. I mean, he really didn't gain a whole lot in the final rounds. But he beat Rory, he beat Justin Thomas, who's been very hot lately. Tiger was up there for a little while, faded a little at the end, but obviously he's always a big presence when he's in the top 10. So very meaningful win for Dustin and bodes well for the rest of this year.
And this wasn't a no-name tournament. There were 46 of the top 50 players in the world playing in this. So the fact that Dustin basically lapped the field shows how impressive it really is.
David, you briefly touched on this. Based on this win, would you guys say that DJ is now a lock to win a major this year?
I don't know about a lock, but it certainly bodes well for his confidence. Being the very, very long hitter that he is and playing a course like Augusta, that bodes very well to his style. But historically, Dustin Johnson has gotten a little too good for his own good at times. I mean, remember that one time at the Masters where he was in the final pairing on Sunday and shot an 80. Just didn't have it, and I think it was he got so confident in how good he could do that when he lost a little bit of that momentum, he just couldn't get it back.
That's true. He hasn't exactly showed up in majors as people would expect. He only has 1 so far. Considering his PGA Tour victories, you would think he has more. But I do think he's a lock to win a major this year. He's the odds-on favorite based on Vegas to win the Masters, which is not surprising. He's been, like I said, extremely good as of late. His iron play, his driving is obviously always going to be good, but his short game is something that he's really turned up a notch, and that's something that he's been losing strokes of the field on, but now he's gaining strokes.
Well, because in the past, he just overpowered all the courses, and he didn't really need a short game when he was winning a tournament by a ton. Now, as the quality of players that he's been playing around has gotten better and better, he's had to fine-tune that short game, and it's become one of the best out there right now.
Exactly.
All right, well, certainly a good start to the year for DJ, and like Will said, currently the odds-on favorite to win the Masters. Hopefully going to be a good year for Dustin Johnson. But that's all the time we have left from the Links. When we come back, we'll discuss some of the worst teams in the NFL, how they can get back on track.
The NFL draft is just over a month away. It's the time of year to look at some of the NFL's rebuilding teams and figure out what holes they have to patch. I'm joined by Brad Clear and Anna Swarlick to discuss. So, Brad, we're going to throw it to you first. The Arizona Cardinals, you know, Josh Rosen had a bit of a rough year on and off. Larry Fitzgerald almost retired. How can they fix it in the draft?
So, the Arizona Cardinals' greatest needs come on the offensive side of the ball. You had mentioned Josh Rosen. Their offensive line is the worst offensive line in the league.
It's terrible.
Josh Rosen is running for his life. He's getting hit on every play. So he's not even able to progress or show his true ability behind that line. And then I would say offensive playmakers. Take away David Johnson. Take away Larry Fitzgerald. What weapons does Josh Rosen
Christian
have
Kirk.
on this team? Exactly. Like a number 3 wide receiver is what Christian Kirk should
Absolutely.
be. So that would be, I would say, offensive line number one, perhaps the greatest need of any team in the whole league, and just give him something other than Fitzgerald.
I think you absolutely nailed it. Offensive line is definitely the first thing they need to address. If they're going to build this franchise around Josh Rosen, they need to give him a little bit of confidence. Yep. Josh Rosen, really, when he wasn't pressured, he was a decent quarterback.
I think he's a good quarterback.
He is a good quarterback. I don't know if he was able to necessarily showcase it last year, but he's a good quarterback.
Do you think it diminished his ability at all throughout the season?
Absolutely, absolutely. Whenever the next QB we're going to talk about is. We'll save that a little bit later.
Well, let's get right into it. The Oakland Raiders, Gruden insanity, I guess. Derek Carr's decline, if you want to call it that. Marshawn Lynch being sidelined. And now they got rid of, Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper on top of that. How can the Raiders fix it, Ennis?
Oh, literally every position.
Every
single position except QB at this point. Do I think they need to do I think Derek Carr's clock is kind of running down? I think so. But if you saw him in the last 10 weeks, I'm sorry, not in the last 10 weeks, after week 10.
Yeah.
When the offensive line gelled, he played very well.
I will say this, though. I agree with everything you said, but I do think quarterback is a need also. Because I don't think that the Derek Carr we saw before he broke his leg in the season where they could have legitimately challenged the
MVP
Patriots
contender.
to make the Super Bowl that year, I don't think we're going to see that same player again. And I cannot see a way in which, at some point over the duration of John Gruden's 10-year contract, that he doesn't want to go out and get his own guy.
I disagree, and I'll tell you why. You look at the Raiders' offensive weapons. You got Jordy Nelson, an aged Jordy Nelson, a seasoned Jordy Nelson.
Jordy Nelson.
On the other, honestly, you're not wrong. On the other side, you have Martavis Bryant.
If he's not suspended.
And then you have names like Marcel Aitman. Do you know who Marcel Aitman is? Exactly. They have Pro Bowler Jared Cook, and that's pretty much it. You can't see. I don't think you can necessarily see how good Derek Carr can be if he doesn't have the weapons.
I see a lack of young stars, Ennis. I don't know about you.
But then to go off of more Derek Carr, let's say it gets to a point where Gruden wants to get his own guy, which I think will happen. Derek Carr is going to have trade value. We've seen how much draft capital teams get when they want that quick fix at quarterback.
Right.
Joe Flacco, as we just saw. So Derek Carr is going to retain trade value. So if they ever wanted to move to their own guy, they could get a second-round pick for Derek Carr.
And
they could get high draft capital.
And I absolutely think he will have trade.
Even more.
I absolutely think he will have trade value, and he does have trade value right now. Do I think they need to trade him right now? No. Gruden loves him.
Not right now, but it's inevitable, I think.
Well, we got one more team to move on to, and that is the Miami Dolphins' new head coach, Brian Flores, from the Patriots after one season. Ryan Tannehill and that contract option. Brad, how can they fix it?
Burn it all to the ground. Burn it down.
Wow, burn it down.
The Dolphins need to do what the Cleveland Browns did under Sashi Brown over the last 3 or 4 years. It would be in their best interest to go 0-16 next year to put themselves in position to get Tua, or in the year after that, be able to get Trevor Lawrence. Look at this team. Tannehill is going to get cut. There's no wide receivers that are really of substance. Devontae Parker.
Devontae Parker is really kind of close. He's all right.
Is there anything you think they can fix in this draft, though?
In this draft, well, I think if you look at this team, there's nothing on this team that isn't expendable besides Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Absolutely.
So adding offensive
Xavier Howard.
Okay,
I would put Xavier Howard.
Okay, yes. But we look at the defense. I think the defensive line, they're cutting Robert Quinn. They're cutting Andre Branch. Cameron Wake is old. So I think the defensive line and the offensive line, because those are two good starting points for when you want to embark on this long teardown process. So really the whole defense besides secondary, I would say.
And it's real quick, what you got?
They need everything. He hit the hammer right on the head. I really think that they need help in the linebacking core, and I just really think that they need to get tackles.
We got a lot of fix in the NFL draft, but that's all the time we have left. When we come back, we'll talk some of the hottest teams in college basketball.
It's March, and you know what that means. The madness is coming. As the regular season winds down in college basketball, I'm joined by Blake Snedman and Emmanuel Tope to discuss our Power 5 conference tournament predictions.
So guys, first and foremost, the conference with 3 top 5 teams in first, second, and third, the ACC. Blake, who's winning the ACC tournament?
I have to go with the Duke Blue Devils. For me, this is really a no-brainer. Yes, they just recently lost to North Carolina, and it was a home game for them. But the power of players that they have, I just can't see how they're not going to win this conference tournament. Zion Williamson by himself, He's an animal.
So we're assuming
RJ
Zion's
Barrett.
going to play then, right?
I think so. They apparently, according to reports, he's not going to be out for very long. And I think they just don't want to risk getting him injured anymore.
Oh, yeah, I agree 100%. I have Duke. I mean, you talk about Zion Williamson, but let's also talk about how R.J. Barrett had stepped up this week with Zion gone. This week, he's averaging 31 points a game, 5 assists, 9 rebounds. Like, he has really stepped up, and that whole team has stepped up against Tennessee, in their last game. So, ultimately, looking at how they have all stepped up. Against Chapel Hill, yes, they lost when Zion went down, but right when Zion went down, they didn't seem prepared. They didn't seem ready for that moment. Right. But now, if Zion's gone, no matter how many times, Coach K will get them ready for that.
Yeah. Zion, a big part of Duke's offense, and I think they're definitely a 1 seed if they win this ACC tournament, right? All right, next is a conference with 3 teams in the top 15. Not as impressive, but still impressive. The Big Ten. Who's winning that?
I like Purdue. They've had a tough schedule, but the thing about Purdue is that they find ways to win games. According to ESPN BPI, Purdue currently ranks in the top 5 in terms of toughest schedules. And they have played some really tough games this year. And like I said, they find ways to win. I mean, right now you have the sharpshooter duo of Carson Edwards, who's struggling a little bit, but I believe that he'll find his stroke when the tournament comes.
Currently second in the conference. Blake, who you got?
Yeah, so my team is Michigan State. They did have a tough stretch in the middle of January. One of the losses was to Purdue. But recently they beat Ohio State, beat Wisconsin, and put the cherry on top, they beat Michigan. And I'm feeling this late season push, and I think they're going to win that conference championship.
I like Michigan, but one thing real quick that I'm worried about Michigan is fatigue and injuries.
Michigan State?
I'm sorry, yes. I'm sorry, but I'm worried about fatigue and injuries. They have a tough schedule coming up, good amount of injuries. I'm kind of worried about that team.
All right, so the Pac-12 will go out west. Washington, Arizona State, Oregon State, the top 3. Like, who is winning that conference tournament?
So for the Pac-12, I have Washington winning. They're 13-1 in conference play this year. Their only team that I'm worried about beating them is Arizona State, which they lost this season 75-63. But overall, I'm not really worried about them. They're 22-5 on the season. As I said, only 1 loss in the conference. I'm pretty sure that they're going to sweep the conference tournament.
I agree 100%. And we talked about that game against Arizona State, where Arizona State won, but they had to shoot over 60%, as well as all 5 of their starters scored 66 points combined for them to beat Washington. No one else can beat this team except for Arizona State, and that's only when they're scoring really well.
Season for Washington already this season. So the Big 12, another conference with the top 3 teams, all in the top 20. Who is winning the Big 12 tournament?
I really like Kansas, and I know that a lot of people are thinking, Texas Tech, Kansas. I know there's a lot of competition with this Big 12 division. But I really like Kansas, and I really like the way that they're playing right now, except for the game against Texas Tech. But this game, this team is playing with a chip on their shoulder. They have a chip on their shoulder. They're going to play well.
No, I don't agree with that. I like your points, Manny. However, I think Texas Tech is going to win this conference tournament. Typically, we do see Kansas being that powerhouse. However, this year, I just don't see it. Texas Tech did end up beating Kansas. They didn't just beat; they destroyed Kansas earlier this season. Numbers don't lie.
Yeah, but speaking of numbers, let me quote Chris Beard real quick when he said, "If we shoot the ball like we did this game," he said this after the Kansas game, "we can beat any team," and that's true. Look at how they shot. They shot 16 3-pointers that game.
I know, man. I'm sorry. Last conference, the SEC. 3 good teams at the top of that conference. Quickly, SEC, who's got it?
I have LSU. They did have 2 losses in the last 15 games, combined 6 points between the 2 losses. They recently beat Tennessee and Kentucky. I don't know, they had a tough start to the season where they actually went unranked at one point.
Agree with that, Emmanuel?
No, I have Kentucky. Speaking of teams that are playing hot right now, they've won 13 of their last 14 games. They're limiting teams to 38% shooting and 60 points a game.
All right, we are flying, guys. Thank you so much. That's all the time we have for the hardwood. When we come back, Andrew will be joined by Drew and Zach to pitch to Bryce Harper.
Last week, we learned Manny Machado had signed a 10-year, $300 million deal with the San Diego Padres. Now there's one huge name that remains unsigned, Bryce Harper. Philadelphia Phillies and the Los Angeles Dodgers have made last-effort pitches to Harper. On set, we have executives from each team here to state their case as to why Harper should join their team. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the one-on-one Shark Tank. So Dodgers, tell us why Bryce Harper should join your team.
I think it's clear and simple. Los Angeles is one of the best cities in the world. It's where all the stars are. Hollywood, LeBron James, Mike Trout. Now let's talk baseball terms. In baseball terms, we were in the World Series last year. We didn't lose much. We lost Yasiel Puig, a nice little outfield spot to open up for, who else but Bryce Harper.
What do you mean you lost not that much? Manny Machado?
Please, come on. Easily replaceable, in my opinion.
So finish your case.
You're already on a championship team, National League championship team, and you'd be taking us to that World Series level. The Phillies didn't make the playoffs last year. You'd be taking a team that's a okay, solid team, and giving them that push to make it to the playoffs. But you're not giving them that World Series push. You want to win a World Series? There's no place better than Los Angeles, in my opinion.
Okay.
Philadelphia Phillies.
So, winning a championship in LA, overrated. Winning a championship in Philadelphia, you're revered. You want to be the best player, best known player in sports? Where else do you want to go? Philadelphia, you're held to the standard. Prove the haters that you are wrong, that you are a good baseball player. You're a great baseball player. You play the Nationals 19 times, one season. You know their scouting reports. You know how they function as an organization. You know their pitching stats. You know how their pitching signals. Where else do you want to go? If you can rub it in their face, stay in the division, you go to the playoffs. They're not going to the playoffs because they're losing you. You're their franchise outside of their pitching staff. I don't see anybody that can carry them. He did not have a great hitting season last year, but he's a fan draw. And if they're not there, their fans might not even show up.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time we have. But don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we'll talk some of the funniest memes involving some of your favorite athletes.